run so hard, and, he was really trying to make such big plays. I mean, he's not loose with the ball. These are, he's kind of a different kind of runner, Dino, where he runs into, a lot of traffic, and he kind of, he breaks through traffic. And I think that that's really the situation there. So I don't think that's going to be a major problem for him. I don't think it's going to become a habitual situation for him. I think it's his 120% effort that's kind of getting him right now. And I think he realizes that he's a big play guy, and he wants to make big plays, and he wants to get this offense going. And I think that's a big part of it. And I think that's why that's happening. I think he ran so hard, and that's the way he does it all the time, that occasionally that's going to happen. Unfortunately, it happened to him, and it happened yesterday, and it happened in the worst ways. Two of the worst ways that something like that can happen, in that you give up 6 points, and you really cost yourself 6 points, because he would have been down at about the 4-yard line when he fumbled after that big run. So that's the disappointing part.
Jim Donovan is with us on After Further Review. Stay with the offense for a second. What did you, on the overall from Baker yesterday, what were your takeaways with that?
Well, I mean, I certainly didn't think he turned in a Sam Darnold performance from Monday night against the Patriot defense. So I thought he was okay in that way. Here's what I really kind of have, thought about it and what's going on with their offense. Their offense is really limited. It really is. If you think about it, the ball goes to three people. It goes to Nick Chubb, it goes to, or it tries to get to, Odell Beckham Jr., and it goes to Jarvis Landry. If you go back to the last 7 or 8 games of last year, what was going on with the offense, I mean, you had Landry, you had Higgins, you had Perriman, you had Chubb, you had Duke Johnson, you had Njoku. You don't have any of that right now. I mean, you're getting nothing out of Callaway, and I left Callaway off the initial list there from last year. So you had the ball going to a lot of different people last year. You had a lot of different kind of players that gave you a lot of different kind of specific talents. But this year, this is a real narrow offense, and you're getting nothing out of Callaway. You've got nothing out of Higgins so far. You have no second running back. You have no tight end. You're getting nothing out of the tight end position. I mean, you even got something out of Darren Fells during the season last year, never mind Njoku. You get very, very little out of Demetrius Harrison. I know he caught a touchdown pass yesterday, but he's in single digits as far as receptions, I believe, this season. But you are getting nothing out of the tight end position, and guys like Higgins and Callaway, they've just been negligible as to what they're doing. So the offense, I think, is very limited. And whether that's Mayfield and what he's seeing and what he's trying to do with the offense, but it's not good. It has no variety to it. I mean, New England went with 3 to 4 running backs yesterday, and Brady did try to spread the ball, not just to Edelman, but he went to Sanu, he went to Dorsett, he tried to get it to Jacoby Myers, he threw it to the running backs, he got it to Ben Watson a couple of times. That's very different than what the Browns are doing.
Yeah, I mean, when they have success, it's like you say, when they have success, Mayfield is on a drive, Mayfield is spreading it around. But sometimes then it's like they forget what makes them successful, and then it's you feel like it's back to that tunnel vision, and got to get the football to Beckham somehow. We got to get the football to Landry, and they forget what allows them to be successful.
Yeah, I just don't think the Odell Beckham Jr. Coming to the Cleveland Browns has really opened up the Browns offense at all and made it prolific or high scoring or very exciting as far as highlight catches are concerned. I mean, it has been minuscule in its effect so far. And I really think it's narrowed the Browns offense. And I just don't think, I think there really is tunnel vision as far as trying to get them the ball and throwing into very, very tight windows. But it really is not working. And they, I don't know what they're going to do right now. I mean, it just seems as though every week they say, oh, well, if they take Beckham away from us, and let's face it, every team is going to try and take Odell Beckham Jr. away from them. So that's going to be a standard operating procedure week in and week out. Denver will try and do the same thing that Bill Belichick and Stephon Gilmore did so well yesterday. So, I mean, every week they say, we realize we're going to have to go to other people, but when the guy drops back and he's throwing the ball, I mean, it seems as though he's got a lot of eyes on number 13, and then, he'll scatter the ball maybe to Landry. But his vision is to 13 and a little bit more with 80, and that's it.
Jimmy, as one thing we talked about when the season started was going to be interesting to watch with a first-year head coach and a guy that really had only had about a half season as a coordinator under his belt was how was Freddie Kitchens going to handle calling the plays, but also being a guy that would have to make those snap decisions, those quick in-game decisions, when to throw the challenge flag, when not to throw the challenge flag, and things like that. And he struggled with that a little bit yesterday, once in each half in terms of when to throw the challenge flag. And somebody said to me this morning, it's like, they have a fire who's ever up in the booth telling Freddie to throw the flag. But some of those, and even the situation on the fourth down and backing it up 5 yards and then keeping the offense on the field, some of those decisions, I just think right now Freddie's struggling with a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's he lost one of the challenges on a spot. I mean, he challenged a spot on a catch by Mohamed Sanu. Those are very, very difficult to get reversed. I mean, historically, since they've been doing this in the NFL, that is probably the least likely reversible call since instant replay has really come into effect in the NFL, that you challenge a spot. I mean, you really don't do that. You really have to weigh the factor of, do I want to give up a timeout? They gave a timeout up because they lost the challenge. They needed the timeout right at the end of the half to try and get down into field goal range. I mean, I don't know who the voice is. It's an unidentified. It's a voice from above. I don't know who the voice is or who the eyes are upstairs that's doing that. But they have not done well with that. No. And whether or not he's taking their advice and doing what they're telling him to do, or they're saying, I don't know what the communication is right there. But they have been. They're 2-5 as a team, and I even think they're worse as far as replay challenges are concerned, and how they're doing it and when they're doing it, and weighing out the expense of losing the challenge and what you lose as far as timeouts concerned. And really, Dino, a lot of times they're behind when they're trying to do these things and get a call overturned, and timeouts are precious when you're behind. Yeah, I mean, and you can't. I mean, you're sitting there in the fourth quarter deciding, okay, whether or not to punt the football, or I mean, Freddie wanted to go for it. He said afterward he wanted to go for it on 4th and 11, but all of a sudden they didn't have a timeout. They only had one timeout left. They didn't want to burn it because they had already challenged the pick play earlier in the quarter. Right. And I think except for spot fouls, pass interference penalties are probably less likely than spot fouls to be overturned. But other than that, I think you're on point with that. And all of a sudden, again, you handcuff yourself in what you're able to do because you have limited timeouts. Yeah, I think that I think that everybody in the NFL has been saying, as much as the NFL came back and said, "Hey, listen, we're going to make pass interference both offensively and defensively challengeable" after the New Orleans NFC Championship fiasco last year. As much as they said we're going to do that, they have been very, very grim and tight about turning those calls over, and they have been, I mean, they're just. Hardly any of them have been turned over, and I think it's a message probably to the coaches and to the teams that, all right, we heard you, but, we're not going to completely turn this thing into, we're going to reverse every situation. So really weighing the percentages of the categories that you're in when you're trying to turn these calls over, I think the Browns have really got to sit back and say, we'd be better holding on to timeouts, because the likelihood of these things being turned over, because neither one of those situations were blatant miscalls. I mean, there really were, a hazy gray area maybe that they had an argument on, but it's going to take more than that to get them turned over. And in the end of it, you really look back and say, gosh, I wish we had the timeouts. Yeah. Jimmy, defensively, I mean, the Browns aren't playing badly necessarily on defense, but to a point I think you raised yesterday, and I think it's worth looking in on. They're not forcing turnovers. They're not forcing explosive plays, and they're not turning teams over and changing momentum. And that was something we saw a lot last year that we're not seeing right now. Yeah, I thought that, and maybe that will improve when Ward and Greedy Williams. I mean, that was their first game back in a month's time, so sometimes it takes a little bit more to get back into the flow of things. Although I thought that Ward, fought hard out there. I thought Greedy Williams a couple of times, got in there and knocked plays away, knocked balls away, coming to the receiver that he was covering. But I also think it's that the pass rush isn't getting home. And it's not always sacks, Dino. It's, pressure, forcing the guy to get rid of the ball before he can step into the throw, throwing off his back foot, rolling out and having to throw and kind of just laying the ball up and, having too much air underneath it and it floats. I mean, that really is the other part of the equation with turnovers. So I think that we always think pass rush is sacks, but it really isn't. It's pressures. It's getting a hit on a quarterback. It's forcing, him to not be able to get the full throw in, and the ball just kind of floats up in the air, and somebody gets underneath it and picks it off. And that's not happening either. So, I mean, sometimes turnovers are like a faucet. You turn it on, and all of a sudden you start getting them, and you get them in big numbers. And that's definitely what happened last year early in the season. It got a little tougher as the season went on. But early in the year last year, I mean, they were getting 3 or 4 of those a game, and they're not even close to that right now. So that hurts. I mean, because, that takes away possible possessions from you. It takes away, a quick turnaround in field position. And, you're just relying on, down and distance and getting off the field on third down. But if you could get turnovers, just like the Patriots have all season long, at an incredible clip, I mean, look at what it did for them.
To kind of put a bow on things, Jimmy, after the Patriots game yesterday, this was the point in the schedule where everybody has been saying all year long, boy, if you just get through the New England game, the schedule gets easier. Get through the Patriots game, schedule gets easier. Well, the Browns are 2-5. With everything we talked about, especially at the beginning with the penalties and the turnovers and the mistakes, there's not unless I haven't heard of this, there's not a magic wand that's going to make those things better. They're going to have to do that on their own. But easier schedule or not, this is an uphill climb the Browns have put themselves in now for these final 9 games.
Yeah, I think that there's not much room for error if you're going to think about, staying in the division race. And then on the other side of it, you don't control a lot of it yourself. You need these teams to lose. So, and a lot of people think that Pittsburgh is going to right itself. And, I mean, they have Miami coming up, so they should right themselves right away. And they could possibly, with a win there, move ahead of the Browns. You're in a bad spot. You need to win, which is a problem enough, but you also, you're hoping that Baltimore loses, and really you should just be taking care of matters yourself. And I think that's really the lesson that we have to walk away from right now, is that they just have to win some games. They have to start winning games. And if you do that, then hopefully things will take care of itself. But when you take a look at the season right now, I think that you have to look at the magic formula. And the magic formula is that they're 2-5. But they've lost to 2 teams that are undefeated. So nobody has beaten San Francisco, and nobody has beaten New England, and they lost to both of those teams on the road. So those are quasi-acceptable, especially in the New England case. In San Francisco, I know, surprised us, but they're beating everybody, and they're getting better and better. So I think they're legit. The problem is, if you really investigate it the way I just laid it out, the fact that you didn't win at home is really killing you. The Tennessee game, and we harped on it in the walk-up to the game and in the aftermath of losing that opening game, that really turned the season into going off schedule at that point, because you needed to be 1-0. You realized that you had these games against New England and Seattle and the Rams, and that those were going to be difficult, so you had to get the ones that were gettable, and you needed the opening game, and really, you were on the 4.5-yard line for 4 plays against the Rams. You should have at least taken that game into overtime and take a shot at it. And you should have beaten Seattle. Yes. In fact, you should have blown them out. So the 2-5 record, the Patriots game, and now because San Francisco is legit, understandable. Nobody's beaten them. But the 3 home games and the fact that you haven't won at home, that's where the problem really is.
Yep. And they won't be at home this week. I mean, I don't care how poorly Denver's offense is playing. Winning at Mile High is never easy, as we found out last year. I mean, it's never easy, and Denver still, last I checked, plays very good defense.
Yeah, Vic Fangio is a great defensive coach, first-year head coach. with the Broncos, and I know they lost a heartbreaker yesterday, but it certainly wasn't because of their defense. They played really well in Indianapolis against a team that was kind of rolling at that point, the Colts, and they shut them down. It was just a lack of point production, and I know Joe Flacco's come out now, and he's called out the play calling for being way too conservative, so we'll see if that has a ripple effect, and if the Broncos, take care of that or listen to him, or how they react to that. But I think the steady thing is that they'll play very good defense, and so we'll see what happens. But there is the old backs to the wall kind of cliche comes into play right now for the Browns.
Indeed it does. Jimmy, as always, we appreciate your time on After Further Review. We'll see you later tonight for the what matters most at 6, the front row at 7, and everything else here later on is try to figure out where we go from here.
All right, Dino. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Jimmy. Jim Donovan, the voice of the Browns, and 3 News sports anchor joining us here on After Further Review. And we have by the way, first thing and foremost, we thank Jimmy for joining us. And my conversation with Jimmy on After Further Review, we give a tip of the cap to our friends at Master Pizza, who also sponsor Donovan and Dino. Remember, download the Master Pizza app on your smartphone. Start earning pizza points today at Master Pizza. That is Master Pizza, taste above all. Now, on Twitter, we have this question for you on After Further Review. The Browns are 2-5 with 9 games to play. How many wins are they going to finish with? Because I'll tell you why I went with that question besides something else here in a second. 9-10, because the Browns aren't going to go 9-0. I just don't think they're going to do that. So let's say we're going to say they'll go 7-2 or 8-0 or 8-1. 16% of you are saying 9-10 wins. Still, 26% of you say they'll finish with 7-8 wins. 37% of you say, well, I'm in that 6-win range, maybe 6-7, and then 21% say 5 or less. Oh boy. Kim says, that's my Patriots. Also, just looking at some comments here. We'll get Matt Florjancic up here in a second. The Browns should have gotten DK Metcalf. He was seriously overlooked. Well, hindsight's 2020. I get that, but back in March, there wasn't anybody who didn't think that going out and getting Odell Beckham Jr. instead of a rookie wide receiver wasn't the right thing to do for this offense. But as Jim says, it's right now when you look at the Browns offense, you're sitting there going, everything is tunnel vision. Everything is you look at them and it's, if we don't get the ball to Beckham, we're in trouble. Instead of where last year the philosophy was we need to take the offense and we need to spread it around to everybody. You're just not seeing that right now, and I think it comes back at you in terms of a trouble situation. Matt Florjancic will join me here in just a second. What else did I see here? Somebody was saying something here on Facebook about Baker, which is one of the reasons why I asked Jim Donovan how he thought Baker Mayfield did. Baker was fine, but yeah, it's the offensive philosophy is a problem. The other question we've put out on our WKYC, our 3 News Twitter, we also have it now at WKYC.com. What do you think that the loss means for Freddie Kitchens? Let me see. I want to see what the megaphone question exactly was here, because you can vote on this. Will Freddie Kitchens be the head coach of the Browns next season? That's why I kind of steered away from that in our question here on the show. Already, 77% of you say no. 23%.
Yeah, it just went up
yes.
another percent while I was standing here, Dino. It went from 76 to 77. Not good.
Not good.
Not good at all.
3 News digital sports producer and writer Matt Florjancic is here with us, and yeah, not good. It's just the same thing I started with Jimmy with. It's one thing to lose to the best team in the NFL. I mean, I think the Browns, we would have been turning cartwheels if the Browns could have come out of Foxborough with a win. But it's the fact, Matt, that they're making the same mistakes now in late October, around Halloween, that they were making around Labor Day in terms of the penalties, the turnovers, but especially the penalties, being double-digit at this point in the season. It's coming off of a bye week, no less. That's a problem.
The Browns are the most penalized team in the league, and teams 2 through 5, I believe, have all played one more game.
Oh my goodness.
Than the Browns. They haven't gone on the bye week yet. It's alarming that these problems have continued to persist throughout the season, but the results aren't. If you can't keep possession of the football and you can't stay in front of the sticks, meaning you're playing 1st and 20, 1st and 15 after holdings and false starts, doesn't matter how good your quarterback is, you're not going to be able to overcome it. I said it yesterday. You couldn't overcome that if you were playing the Dolphins. If you were playing the Bengals. You expected to overcome that when you were playing the Patriots? Come on.
Forget it.
Something is amiss here, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. If it's just the play calling, if it's too many voices in the quarterback's head, meaning Todd Monken and Freddie Kitchens and Ryan Lindley all trying to get him to do different things. Simplify the process. Whatever your process is, it's not working, simplify it. Go back to what made him successful in the second half of last year.
And one of the things, and Jimmy pointed this out a few minutes ago, was that, last year, they had Jarvis Landry, certainly, and they had Nick Chubb. But Baker was throwing the ball to Callaway, to Higgins, to Njoku, who I know is injured right now. But, he was spreading the ball around, to Duke Johnson. I mean, even to Darren Fells. I mean, the Browns, it's like if Baker doesn't find a tight end to throw to, it's like the offense doesn't move sometimes, or it doesn't score. It's like it's either Chubb or it's Landry. It's not even Beckham at this point.
Yeah, chemistry-wise, Odell looks completely lost out there, and I'm not sure what after 7 games is going to help that cause. But it looks like his depth isn't right, or the pass is just too long. Something is off on the timing of it, and you would think by now it'd be fine, regardless of how many or how little they played together in the preseason and training camp, because Beckham was severely limited in what he could do. And this is week 9. Like, you need to start playing better football and getting everybody on the same page. And if you can't, you need to find out a way to do that. It's unbelievable that we're still talking about chemistry issues, penalties. Turnovers are going to happen. When you play an aggressive team like the Patriots, turnovers are bound to happen. You have to minimize them, but you have to know that there are some times that a guy makes a good play. But the penalties are something that is completely controllable. They had 2 OPIs yesterday,
right?
Offensive pass interference, and they challenged one. They're 0 for the last 42 on challenges across the league on those calls. Officials are not going to sit there and overturn a judgment call. Accept it, move on, keep the challenge flag in your pocket. They're not going to show up another official by saying, "Oh, that really wasn't pass interference." It's not going to happen.
No.
And shame on Callaway for deciding to set a screen. Why are you setting a pick on a DB?
Right.
What are you doing? Like, it's just maddening that these problems continue to persist, and you have to point directly at the coaching, because if you had a disciplined team, if Bill Belichick had a team that committed 13 penalties in a game, I'm pretty sure there would be no football involved at practice for the entire week, and he would sit there and make them run the entire time, and punish them for making mistakes. We a few years back, we all got on Eric Mangini because Alex Mack would be running multiple laps a day for false starts. Alex was one of the least penalized offensive linemen on the team when the regular season came.
Became an all-pro. Yep.
Multiple-time Pro Bowler. I don't know that we're going to have any Pro Bowlers this year because they just don't play disciplined football.
Well, yeah, here's we all want to harp on the Miami Dolphins, worst team in the NFL. They're Tankapalooza. Brian Flores' team has 34 penalties, and I know they're playing tonight. They've got 34 penalties in the year. The Browns, after yesterday's performance, they're up to 70.
They're on a near-record pace. I think the record was 163 set by the Oakland Raiders. The Browns are currently on pace to hit close to 160.
I mean,
and
that's just not acceptable.
No. When you start the year with 18 penalties, you chalk it up and say, okay, it was the first one. Lots of things were new, lots of new moving parts and what have you. this is the 7th game of the season, and you're still committing 13 penalties. And then to hear Freddie Kitchens talk after the game about, in 20 years, I've never once, coached a penalty unless it would help me in time management situations, which is still a little hazy to me. And then in the next vein, he's like, yeah, well, I told him to take the penalty because I wanted to keep the timeout. What are you doing?
Right.
You look completely overmatched. I mean, granted, you're going up against one of the best to ever do it in Bill Belichick. I get it. You don't need to help the process. You need to do something to combat what he's going to do to you.
In all the years I've watched football, and I'm not just talking NFL football, I've never seen that before.
You've seen thousands of games. You've called thousands of games.
Yeah, never seen that.
And honestly, we think we've seen everything when it comes to this team, and then there's performances like yesterday.
Yeah.
And then we're all sitting here scratching our heads going, why does this continue to happen? Why can't you get through to your players?
Right.
What are you too nice? Like, are you? I mean, we saw you get after people at training camp. We know you can crank up the volume, if you will. A lot of not safe for work language used on the practice field. We'll just put it that way. But now it looks like you just want to be everybody's friend.
Right.
Like,
And you can't win.
You can't do that.
You can't win like that.
Bill Belichick is one of the most successful coaches in NFL history, one of the most respected coaches in NFL history, and I would dare to say that about 60% of his players probably would not want to have him over for Thanksgiving dinner.
Correct.
Because he's not, he's not their friend. Mm-hmm. He's their coach.
He's their coach.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But
there's a boundary. There's a borderline there, and you don't cross it. And I don't know. I just sit there and the sequence you mentioned with the punt, and well, we're gonna take the penalty. We're gonna go false start so that way we don't have to burn a timeout. I'm sitting there going, yes, I know it's the end of the game, and yes, I know the Browns aren't going to come back and win, but it just illustrates that when those things that don't necessarily get talked about for coaching. It's when to throw the challenge flag, when to take the timeout, when not to take the timeout, when to go for it on 4th and 1, when to not go for it or whatever. Those types of things he hasn't mastered yet. And I don't know. I mean, again, we've seen head coaches. Sometimes you get it in 2 seconds. Sometimes it takes time. But Freddie hasn't gotten that yet.
He hasn't.
And some of it maybe you put on a staff. You're supposed to help your head coach. I don't know, but it's not working.
No, it's not. And people asked me throughout the evening after the game last night if I thought the Browns should make a change immediately. And I said, look, if they were going to make any changes, it would have happened by now because they already had their bye week. I think we're all going to have to ride this out with Freddie running the ship. The one change I would like to see is John Dorsey going into the coaches meeting and looking at Freddie and saying, I hired you to be the head coach. You're going to manage the game. Todd Monken, you're the offensive coordinator. You're going to call the plays. I think there's too much on his plate. Yeah. We've seen it with multiple coaches before. Under the Haslam regime and even before, were guys who insisted on calling plays because that's what got me here. This is my strength. Do you want to be a coordinator or do you want to be a head coach?
Right.
And quite honestly,
Pat
Shurmur did that.
Hugh
Jackson. Rob Chudzinski had an offensive coordinator, but I still think he had final say in the plays.
Because he had, North Turner, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
A very veteran offensive coordinator, much like Todd Monken. Monken has a lot of experience and a pretty good track record of success in this league, especially with what he did last year in Tampa Bay. I would make that mandate right now. If you want to keep your job, you're going to let him call the plays because it's too much. You can't manage the game. You're struggling with play calling. We've got an offensive coordinator right here, and yet you're not using him properly. I think that is one mandate that absolutely has to be made, and if Freddie can't get on board with that, then there's the door.
Right. I mean, it sounds harsh, but I mean that.
This is life in the NFL.
Something's got to change.
It's not for long.
Right.
We joke the NFL is real acronym is National Football League, but we all joke it's not for long, no family life, this, that, and the third. Look, if Freddie wants to, fall on his sword, great. I applaud him for doing it because really he has no other option because everything's pointing towards him anyway. But that's not going to get this team going where it needs to go. It's not going to win games. Enough of we know what the problem is. Fix it. That's the only thing you need to say all week. Fix it.
Yep. Have you ever seen a sequence of like three straight plays, 3 straight turnovers like that?
In high school, I have.
Yeah.
I think we both have. But, I mean, heck, we saw a 1st and goal from the 5 turn into 1st and goal from the 50 last year at Riverside.
That's right.
So we've seen just about everything. But at the professional level, that's pretty unprecedented. And look, Nick Chubb is a fantastic football player, and I am not by any means throwing him under the bus. We all saw that fumble coming from a mile away on that long run.
Yeah.
I mean, he did everything right except for putting the ball in the offhand, which I get, when you're right-handed, you want to keep it in your strong hand. Mm-hmm. But there was no effort to tackle Nick Chubb on that play. It was strictly a boomer bust option, and the Browns came up bust. They got the football punched out, and those kind of things happen. And when you're playing a team like the Patriots and you kind of leave the ball exposed, even if it's the most minuscule amount, it's going to get poked loose.
Yeah, that's the shovel pass interception. The Browns have tried that play like 5 times this year, and I feel like it still hasn't worked out well.
I don't even know if it works in practice, to be honest with you. It sure doesn't look like it on game days. It doesn't look like they've ever run the darn play in their lives, much less had it go successfully. I don't know whose idea it was to let Lawrence Guy be a free rusher, but
it's never a good. That's never a good.
Not
plan.
A good plan when you're doing a crossing route across the formation to Jarvis Landry, where Landry looked like he got knocked silly by Lawrence Guy. He ran right into the shoulder pad and bounced off like he was seeing stars.
Yep.
That play had a very limited amount of chance to be successful as it was, and then when you let a free rusher come in, it just blows it up. Right. I mean, you're talking about dealing with a lot of close quarters combat in that situation, and you can't allow any space to be taken up.
All right.
And that play was blown up before it started. Honestly, that as soon as that snap of the ball happened, Baker would have been just as good airmail it into the sideline over somebody's head.
Right. And just take your chances. We asked people how many wins now. The Browns have 9 to go here. How many wins total are they going to finish with? And I mean, the majority of people think right now maybe 6 to 7 at the most. I mean, man, if we're talking a 6-10 finish, 7-9, it's a
really difficult case to bring somebody back.
That's going to be real tough, especially if your quarterback doesn't have a significant injury, if you don't have any significant injuries, if you just basically from here on in, let's say they go 4-5 in their last 9 games and finish out 6-10. I think we might be talking a 1 year, one and done.
I think we're having a lot of conversations in early January. I'll just leave it at that. If they can't get even back to 7 wins where they were last year, and they take a massive step back, which it looks like they have definitely taken a massive step back, you have to go in a different direction. My biggest concern is, okay, John Dorsey won the Battle of Wills over Paul DePodesta and the analytics crew by hiring Freddie Kitchens over Kevin Stefanski. Now what happens?
Right.
Now who does Jimmy turn to and say, go get me my next head coach? Does he go back to Dorsey and give him another shot and see if he can mea culpa with Mike McCarthy and bring him into the fold? Or do they let the computer analysts make another coaching hire?
Right.
Which they had their shot too, by the way.
Yeah, with you.
And whiffed in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, this could go a lot of directions. I mean, people want to sit there and say
None of which are good
none of which
right
are
now,
good.
to be honest with you.
I mean, people were saying to me on Twitter, it's like, well, yeah, but this is where the schedule gets easier now, guys. We've got 9 games to go. Kareem Hunt's going to be back in a couple weeks, and you sit there and you go, based on what?
They can't figure out a way to take advantage of Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and Nick Chubb as it is. Now you're talking about adding another guy into the mix who's going to take carries away from Nick Chubb. They're going to look even more lost if they keep on this current trajectory. Enough of the easy schedule talk. If you play the way you have through the first 7 games and you expect to win 6, 7, 8 games down the stretch, you're fooling yourselves as Browns players. You can't do this continuously and expect to overcome it. You're not that good.
Right.
You know, the Patriots aren't that good to overcome 13 penalties for 85 lost yards or 18 penalties for almost 200 yards. You know, no team is good enough to do that, and you think you're just going to look at that second half of the schedule and go, oh, it's easy. Guess what? The Bills aren't an easy out. The Steelers have had a couple of months now to adjust with life without Roethlisberger, and they're starting to play better. Mm-hmm. They still have a fantastic running game, by the way, that you will have to stop, and that hasn't exactly been something you've been great at any point this season, is stopping the run. And honestly, you can't look at this and say, oh, the second half will make a run. If you dig yourself the hole that you have in the first half, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You're going up against other guys, other professionals who get paid to do their jobs too. And there is this matter of pride where no team wants to be what you just were, which was 0-16 a couple of years ago. You get Miami, you get Cincinnati twice, and both of those teams are looking at you now, and instead of fearing you having to come in here, they're looking at you as the only chance they have to get a win.
Yep.
We never thought that was going to be the case this year.
Nope.
Not once did anybody say, you, me, some of our colleagues, both in the building and externally, did we once say that the Bengals and Dolphins would look at us as their only shot at a win?
Right, or their best shot anyway. Yeah, I mean, I didn't see that. I didn't see that at all.
No, and that's where we're at right now. At
Right.
2-5, third place in the AFC North Division, 3 games in back of Baltimore. I think we can put the division championship talk to rest right now. I think that's pipe dream at best.
I mean, you have to win. I mean, because now you're 3 below 500. I mean, you got to win at least 3 in a row. You got at some point to get back above 500. I mean, you've got to win like 3 in a row.
Stack
4
wins,
you got to stack wins
which
together.
They can't even get one, much less try to stack them at this point.
That's it.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
I didn't think honestly we would be at this point.
I didn't
and I know I'm very negative and realistic in my expectations, but this season has come off the rails. And credit to our on-site engineer Brian Crane, he called it maybe the day after they traded for Beckham that it was going to be the same old Browns. And at 2
we all
5,
said, "Oh, you're trolling us. You're trolling us, Crane. You're trolling us."
At 2-5, you can't argue against them.
No. Carol says she thinks the Browns are going to finish with 2 wins. Oh. Keith, much more optimistic. He says the Browns are going to start rolling. He thinks they'll win 7 of the last 9 and finish 9-7.
At this point, that would be fantastic.
That would be true. Keith, if they do that, that would be tremendous. That would be a tremendous finish.
Yeah, it really would be. And as Odell Beckham Jr. said earlier last week, actually, when he was referencing Tom Brady, I'll drink what he's drinking.
Yeah. Last thought here from Daryl. He says, all you want is a chance. Cut out the penalties and mental mistakes in year 1 together. Yeah, I mean, that's a good place. If you cut out the penalties and the mental mistakes, you're going to give yourself a chance to win some of these games.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they can. I don't know if that's in their DNA.
I don't. Well, clearly it hasn't been to this point.
Right.
They have not been overcomers. All these guys were counted out at some point in their careers. That's why the Dolphins jettisoned Landry. That's why Baker was a backup or walk-on at 2 schools.
Right.
That's why Freddie was an assistant for 20 years before he got his shot. That's why Odell, the Giants, said, he was the root cause of all our problems, let's get him out of here. Look, all these guys were counted out. And guess what? Right now, they're still getting counted out. Use that as motivation to go prove people wrong, not prove them right.
That's it. My friend, as always.
I'm sorry, that was a little bit of a motivation.
That was. I'm ready to run through a wall right now.
Sorry about that.
We've got a lot more coverage of the Browns at WKYC.com. Matt has stories. Ben Axelrod has stories. Bud Shaw is posted the column. Remember, you can also vote in our both at WKYC.com in our megaphone poll, and also on Twitter. You can vote on our poll asking how many wins the Browns are going to get this year. Who knows? Zach says, thanks, Sports Illustrated. All right, for Matt Fuller-Jancic and for Jim Donovan and for the aforementioned engineer Brian Crane, I'm Dave DeNatale. Thanks for watching After Further Review here on WKYC.com, YouTube, and Facebook Live.